All right, hey everybody, Mary Gauthier here, and it is time to connect.
Mary Gauthier, thank you so much for taking the time to connect. I really appreciate it. How are you?
Doing great, feeling good, and sort of like at the beginning of a marathon. It's just coming my way, and we're doing everything we can to get it right this time. So here we go again.
And I assume you mean by that we're coming out of the pandemic and things are opening up again and getting busy again and playing live and you've got a book to promote and staying really busy, huh?
Yeah, book to promote, a record coming out in June. We're already doing quite a bit with that, and tour dates pouring in, and just an awful lot of spinning plates. I signed a deal with the Speakers Bureau, Macmillan Speakers Bureau, an affiliate of my book publisher. So I am going to try my hand at yet another thing, which is public speaking. So,
Wow. Well, one of the things I'm a semi-retired professor, and one of the things that I taught in my career is public speaking. So, I understand how difficult it can be for some people, even those who perform. It's a whole different vibe than sitting up there with a guitar, isn't it?
yeah, but I'm not doing it unless they let me bring my guitar. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
part of the deal.
right on.
If words fail me, I can play a song.
Right on. Well, I have a just way more questions probably than we have time for here. But one of the things I want to jump into right away is this book. Mary, I know enough about you to know it would be good, but honestly, it blew me away. This
Oh,
book is so good, and I've been telling all my friends you have to read it. Been buying it for friends, and it's you know what really struck me, and again, it probably shouldn't surprise me based on your songwriting, but is how honest and real and vulnerable you are in this book. It's just really a beautiful thing. How hard was it for you? It is your first book, is that right?
yeah, yeah.
How I know long form is probably not the natural thing for you. How much of a slog was it getting through this book?
It was hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, years and years and years of focused effort,
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to arc a book is not for the faint of heart. With the song, you got one piece of paper, one screen. It's singular, and it's like a little Rubik's cube, and you keep spinning it around and trying to find a way that all the pieces will line up. With hundreds of pages, it's just so hard to remember what I'd already said or
Mm-hmm.
how to get from here to there. I forget where I was. I mean, it's a really different thing than songwriting and essay writing and short stories, which I've done quite a bit of. So I had a lot to learn, and I will say this, that I feel like having completed the task, I feel like I have this sense of gratification that only comes from really hard work.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. And I've heard you say before that if this book ends up being successful, then you might consider doing more. Uh, I think you've met that bar. I hope you probably don't want to start right away, but I hope you will do more because it's terrific. Um, one of the things that impresses me about it and that just really touches me is again how vulnerable you are in this book. Not only your story, you're sharing the details of your story and all the lows as well as the highs. Uh, for example, sharing your song drafts. I think a lot of songwriters would not be willing to do that, and I think it's really cool that you do that. I'm just curious, what did you go through any kind of thought process as to okay, if each chapter is going to be kind of framed by a song and the emotional history of that song, do I need to show early drafts? I'm curious what that thought process was.
You know, I didn't have early drafts of the songs originally. And I had some chapters, and I sent them to the writer Joe Klein. And Joe read them, and he came back with, I got some good news and some bad news. He said, the good news is you can write, kid. And the bad news is you got work to do. And he gave me some pointers, and one of them, he really illuminated for me that the most interesting part of the work that he did writing the Woody Guthrie book, which I love that book that Joe wrote. It's called Woody Guthrie: A Life. Was when he was going through Woody's drafts of This Land Is Your Land, and so he could follow along with the logic of the writer. Like the original draft was, it didn't say the New York Island, it said Staten Island. And he could, the author, Joe, could surmise that Woody was thinking, yeah, a lot of people in Oklahoma don't know Staten Island. So let's go New York Island, because they'll know at least what that means in general more than Staten Island. And so the edits and drafts and rewrites gave him an insight into the writing process as an author writing about a writer. Right. And I thought, man, I could do that. I've got all my drafts. I've saved it all. And it's really a part of the book that people are drawn to, because it kind of pulls the curtain back on this crazy idea that came, I guess, from Bob Dylan. You know, I wrote Blowing in the Wind in the cab on the way to the recording studio kind of mythology. That actually the truth for most writers is we work and we rewrite and we rewrite and we chisel and we hammer and we make it better little by slow.
Yeah, absolutely. And another good touch point there is Kerouac's On the Road. You know, the legend was he wrote that thing on a teletype paper. It was all first thought, best thought. It turns out that's not really true. He edited even that book a lot, probably less than the other ones, but yeah, that's cool that you gave us that insight. It's one of the things I really like about the book. Can you speak about the epigraph, the Gospel of Thomas epigraph? What would you have in mind there? Shall we read it?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
You got it, or you want me to find it?
Either way. You want me to read? I've got it here.
Yeah. Would you read it?
Yeah. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to say anything about that? I mean, maybe it speaks for itself. I don't know.
We come to planet Earth with certain programs installed. And if we don't open them, if we don't click the button that opens them, there is something carcinogenic about that. There's something catastrophic about that. There's something that is it is a life unlived. And for me, I wrote that as the big thought at the beginning, because I didn't become a songwriter full time till I was 40. And all my life prior to committing to this life as a songwriter was spent looking for the feeling of rightness. If I hadn't have gotten sober, I wouldn't have had the audacity to write songs, and I sure wouldn't have had the audacity to become a full-time, full-on songwriter and find my way as an artist. I would have just stayed in a job that paid well, where I was more or less in charge and didn't have a lot of people breathing over my shoulder, and coasted. And that likely would have, in my estimation, led to a relapse, and I might not have been able to stay sober or stay sober continually for as long as I have.
And thus the title, Saved by a Song. Yeah. You know, as you were talking there, I was thinking of Thoreau's quote, and we'll forgive the gender specific aspect of it. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Most people don't find those buttons, or if they find them, they don't push it. They don't have the courage to push them. What is it about you? Is it inextricably tied to the whole journey of getting sober and getting real through that process that allowed you to push those buttons?
I think so. I think the urgency for me is my addictive nature. And for me, it over and over again has been life and death. It still is.
Yeah.
It's still, that has not changed.
Really?
And that motivates. That motivates. If I don't grow, I go backwards. And if I go backwards at a high enough rate of speed, I'm going to catch on fire because I am a full-blown addict. And it's not lost on me that is still inside me. Even though I have decades and decades of sobriety, really, truly, the cliche is the truth that I really only have today.
Yeah.
And so it's very compelling to me to open all the windows and to reach for what it is that might be the next right thing for me to do and not stay stuck too long.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you're an inspiration to so many people. Two things in the book I wonder if you would talk about. One, listen, I've done open mics. I've done a lot of open mics. I know what open mics are like. I was just blown away by your patience and your stick-to-itiveness, because as you talked about those early days, and especially that first open mic where you couldn't even perform, and I got the feeling it was just week after week of maybe getting a little bit better. And I'm putting myself in your shoes and saying, I would have given up a long time ago. How did you have the patience just to keep going and keep doing it?
I don't know. One thing is, I didn't start out at the open mics thinking I was going to change careers. My restaurant that I was co-owner of was my focus, and it slowly over years flipped into the songs became my full-time focus. They changed places after a decade, so it was a process more than an event.
Gotcha.
For one. Yeah. And I needed to do something with my time. I went to the open mic early in sobriety, and when you get sober, what is astonishing to you is that there's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Like, what do people do with all this time if they don't get high?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's only noon?
Yeah.
Holy moly. So I thought of going to the open mic and meeting the songwriters and writing something that I was proud of and getting on the stage and trying to get better at it was a good way to spend my time. I didn't know what to do with my time when I wasn't at work. And so it started as that, and over many years became deeply connected to my purpose, to the point where I had to walk away from everything I was doing but that.
Yeah.
But I think that oftentimes, again, in the mythology of how all this works, is people think of it as an event and not a process. For most artists, it's a process. My partner, Jamie, God, she played in Austin for a decade.
Yeah.
Before she even put a record out.
Yeah. And I know it wasn't an event, it was a process, but do you recall a time when you had that realization that, oh, okay, this is going to be what I do? Was there a specific time, or was that also kind of a gradual thing?
Process, but I do recall many times going to the restaurant and thinking, I got to be in love with this again. Yeah. I've got to be in love with this again. I can't do this with this feeling of emptiness. I gotta love this again. Today I'm gonna love it. Even if I'm gonna come up with an incredible soup or something. This has to be a passion. I lost my passion. It was like being in a bad marriage and trying so hard to find that love that was once there, and over again, thinking you found it again, and then it fizzles. And so that my relationship with the restaurant was dying a slow death as my passion was building for the art form of songwriting. And at a certain point, I realized I came to Nashville. I did Tin Pan South, which is a publisher event, and I experienced what it was like to be here. And I realized that at some point I gotta do the most scary thing in the world, which is walk away from everything that I knew and try starting over at 40.
Wow. And again, most people live lives of quiet desperation because they don't have the courage to do that. They don't, events don't line up to allow them to do that, for whatever reason. So at the risk of maybe pushing this too hard, what is it about you? What is it about you that made you do that, that allowed you to be that person?
Well, there were things I told myself that calmed down the panic. One of them was I knew how to talk to people who had wealth and convince them that investing in my restaurant idea was a good idea.
Yeah. Okay.
I had done that successfully twice. So I knew I could do that a third time if I needed to. That if this crazy song thing didn't work out, I could find my way to people who would take the risk on me, and we could open another restaurant or a coffee shop or something like that. So I had that in the back of my mind. And the other thing is, I felt as though I had cheated death. Having gotten sober and stayed sober, I felt like, gosh, I'm swimming in the gravy boat already. Right. All of this is just borrowed time. Why not do something that is kind of nuts?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Why not? I should, by all rights, be dead. and I'm not. And I really, really love the challenge of writing songs. And I had little bits of evidence that were telling me that maybe one day I would be good at it, or that I was good at it. Like I got nominated for a Boston Music Award as Best New Artist with my my first record. That was really a collection of demos that I named after my restaurant, the Dixie Kitchen. And I didn't win, but that nomination in a town that is just overflowing with people with folk guitars, I was really given pause. Like, okay, that happened and nobody bought that nomination. That came out of nowhere. Yeah. And then I started going to this conference called the Folk Alliance, and I found people that were willing to work with me. There was a woman who booked me at a community college folk festival. Her name was Paula Ballin, and she used to be good friends with Steve Goodman and was with him in his leukemia treatments. And she said, "You're really good. You're coming to my festival." And like, oh my God, you know, I'd never played a festival. I was playing open mics.
Right.
And then it led to the craziest thing in the world, which is I got booked at the Newport Folk Festival. And that was to me like a ticker tape saying, you got to do this.
Yeah.
You got to do this. You got to take off your chef coat and put them all in a box, bring them to Goodwill, and decide if you're going to move to Nashville or move to Austin. And that was a tough choice for me. I knew I had to get out of Boston because the agent that was booking me kept saying, "Mary, it'd be easier for me to book you if you lived in the South. You know, you're this Southern songwriter in the style of, you know, Guy and Townsend, Nanci Griffith living in Boston. You got to get out of there. It's product confusion. You got to get out of there." And I said, "Well, Nashville or Austin?" He said, you choose one or the other." And, you know, I ended up asking Guy Clark, "What should I do? Why do you live in Nashville, Guy?" And he said, well, Kathy Mattea is looking for one more song for her new record. She's not asking Austin songwriters to come to the studio and play them at night.
Mhm.
You got to be here to win. You got to be here if you want your songs recorded by other people. And I did, and I still do. It took about 20 years, but Kathy did record one of my songs. But
Yes, she did.
Guy guided me to Nashville. He said, it's a business town. You want to be in the music business. And he said, that's why I live here, because of my publishing deal. And so I talked to Buddy Miller. I talked to people who I really respected and asked them these questions. And it became, it was revealed to me through these conversations what I should do. I didn't wake up one day and just know. It was a process of talking to people and
Yeah.
and the world giving me evidence that maybe this could work.
Yeah, and with people like Guy giving you that encouragement, and you mentioned Nanci, would you mind telling maybe a quick version of that's the other thing I wanted to ask you about in the book. That's one of the moments that really touched me, when the guitar story. Do you mind telling that real quickly, kind of high level?
Yeah, I was new in Nashville. I had opened several shows on the West Coast for Nanci. My agent was able to get me that string of shows as an opener with Nanci Griffith, which to me was heaven sent.
Yeah.
I was a huge, and still always will be, a Nanci fan. And I was invited to this party where there was just a collection of luminaries at the photographer Jim McGuire's house. Jim shot The Highwaymen. He shot all of Guy's record covers, a lot of Nanci's record covers. He's retired now, but he was very, very well known a music photographer here in Nashville. And the party turned into a guitar pull. Guy was there, Nanci, Steve Earle, I think John Hyatt, a group of like Rodney, Joe Ely, Lyle Lovett, who was to me an icon. They're all icons.
Yes.
And so they were swapping songs in a circle, and they were just about done. And Nanci said, I wasn't in the circle. I was new in Nashville, just kind of at the party. Nanci said, Mary, would you play us a song? And I'm like, God, here I go. Here's my shot. And I did. I played a song. And when it was done, well, she asked me to play a song. I didn't have a guitar, so she handed me hers. And when I was done, she told me to keep her guitar, which I still have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know about the tradition at that time? I
No.
remember Johnny Cash gave Bob Dylan his guitar. It's kind of a Nashville troubadour tradition, and a kind of a way of just saying, you're in the club, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and Harlan Howard, the great Nashville songwriter, had given Nanci his guitar. I had no idea, the guitar's right there. I keep it close.
Yeah. Nice.
Jamie and I played it the day that Nanci passed.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was another one of those crazy moments of you are one, and you need to rise and quit hemming and hawing and take the reins, stand tall, and do this work. Do the work, Mary.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's fantastic. By the way, I have a song idea for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of, didn't you play Our Lady of the Shooting Stars?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. In your chapter, you about that song, you talk about going over, is it Martha's Vineyard or
taking the ferry over to the vineyard when I was still living in Boston.
And there's a line in that one of those paragraphs that is, in my opinion, a great song title. It's very simple, but it's just full of meaning. And then the line is, a room full of empty chairs. That could be a song title. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you have a songwriters workshop coming up online, or have you already been doing that? I know you're doing this online now. That's really cool. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, we do them in person here in Nashville a couple of times a year. And I teach at folk festivals. And I do teach online. I started the online thing during the pandemic,
Right.
where we have 20 songwriters join me over a 4-week period on Saturdays, I believe, for 3 hours, and do the work. I start with a lecture, and then they present some of their work, and we go in and really try to take the lid off of this art form. And my calling to teach is so strong. I just really love working with songwriters, especially the timid ones who are a little older. Because I was a timid one who was a little older not that long ago, and I know that that great songs can be written by people of any age, and what it takes is a commitment and a willingness to be vulnerable and to be brave, and doing the work in a 20-person setting. It feels like the right number, and the group forms into a really close, supportive community of other writers who understand what each other's going through as they present their work, and there's just the terror of it all,
Right.
being unsure and going forth anyway in front of a group. It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love encouraging that.
Yeah, I've heard you say you're not so much a teacher as you are a songwriting writer encourager. Is that right?
That's what Verlin Thompson says. Yeah, he says, "Well, Mary, I'm not really a teacher. I'm an encourager."
Yeah.
I think of myself kind of as a midwife. Like I want to help them birth their baby, but I don't.
Beautiful.
I sit on the little chair a lot, and just wait and hold their hand as they work through the process themselves.
So one question I'm sure comes up a lot with the participants in these workshops, and I'm curious how you approach editing, because I know you do. I've heard you say that you edit a lot. That you do edit a lot, and the old idea of first thought, best thought is usually nonsense, and any good writer is going to edit a lot. But how do you? Now, I also know that you said a song's done when you would play it for Steve Earle, which I think is, or sorry, for Guy Clark, which I think is a great measure there. But how do you stay objective, Mary? How do you? I know that whether it's essay form, I've got a couple of books going. I'm a songwriter, and I know that one of the things that is difficult for me is almost the further I go in the editing process, the more I edit, the less objective I sometimes become. How do you stay objective?
Well, what I use is what I call the truthometer, and I talk about that in the book quite a bit. It's my gut. My gut, I've had to turn up the volume on it, and I think that's one of the healing parts of this work for me, is that when I started as a songwriter, my gut was a wreck. I had so much trauma. I had lost communication. Houston, we have a problem. My therapist said I was like a head walking into her office without a body. And part of the healing process of trauma is getting back in your body and being safe there and being able to listen to the messages that it sends, and use your brain to assess some of those messages, but not to dominate and control the messages. The gut knowing is a wisdom that the brain sometimes doesn't have. There's a wisdom in the solar plexus, and that's my guide. If I feel strongly that it's just not there yet, it's just not there yet. Yeah. And if I feel strongly that there's a better way of saying it or singing it, I tend to keep going. And if I feel this sense of this is it, not think it, but feel it in that knowing place, then I trust that. And it hardly ever lets me down. It hardly ever lets me down.
And I think it's important, especially for young songwriters, to know that you also don't present all the songs that you write.
Oh God, no.
Yeah.
Oh God, no. I went to
Yeah.
a painting, an art show, Impressionists, and there's that Monet painting of the Japanese garden with the bridge.
Sure.
And after the artist passed, the collectors or the kids went in the basement and they found 12. This painting is the size of I don't know, like the entire living room wall. Okay, it's a massive painting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the size of an 18-wheeler almost, and they found 11 or 12 of them, and he had painted them at different times a day. He brought to the public the one that was the exact right light, but the exhibit was about the other 11 or 12 so that we could see the drafts, right?
Yeah, we're back to that. Yeah.
That taught me a lot. No, don't bring the other 11 or 12. They can look at that after you're gone. Bring the one that you know is right. And so there's a lot of songs that just don't measure up to my other songs that I don't want to record or play, but I have to write them. And
Yes.
and I might be a bad judge of that too, like so many are. I remember in the Nashville tornado a couple of years ago, the roof got torn off of Gillian Welsh and Dave Rawlings' studio in East Nashville in that tornado. And they panicked and they ran and they got what they could, and what they wanted to save the most were recordings on tape of songs they thought that weren't that great, that Gil had written to complete a publishing deal. And they realized, God, if this is if this is what we want to save more than anything, maybe there's more to this than we thought. And they released those songs and people love them. So, they're there. Maybe one day I'll have a different opinion of it, but there's a lot of Mary Gauthier songs that don't get put on records or get played.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important again for young songwriters to know, because we don't need to name these people, but too many songwriters put out too much stuff. They don't seem to know. They just want to put out everything, it seems like, and I think they would be better advised to be a little more selective. What about John Prine? He's one of my all-time heroes, and like Nanci, we lost him recently, and that was tough. I'm curious. Maybe I'll ask it this way: what was it like knowing and playing with John?
What a gift! What a gift! John was a friend, and I got to open for him over a number of years, and he was incredibly childlike in the way that he lived his life. He kept it pretty simple. He was like his songs. He was like his songs.
Wow. Yeah.
He's the kind of guy that keep Christmas decorations up all year because it made him happy to sit in the car and look at them. He was, for me, one of the most important songwriters to write songs, because the way that he did it was simple elegance. That need to be musically complex just never hit him. He was able to do more with 3 chords than just about anybody, and he was a teacher for me. And I resonated with John from the very first time I ever heard John, and I wrote that in the book. I was a kid trying to score drugs in a horrible apartment in a terrible town. And somebody dropped the needle on Sam Stone and it electrocuted me. I like, what is this? And the song contained my future in every way. And I didn't know it, that I was going to end up in dire straits with drugs. And fast forward another 15 20 years, and I'm going to end up working with soldiers using music and song to help them take trauma out of the body.
And that sounds like something John himself would have done as well, I think.
He did, actually. I think
Did he? Okay.
I would imagine that's part of the story of having written one of the most important anti-war songs ever written without it being approached as an anti-war song.
Right.
It's an anti-war song in that it tells the truth of what happens to traumatized soldiers.
Yeah. And you know, people always point to there's a hole in Daddy's arm where all the money goes. And of course, just one of the most amazing lines ever. But, you know, a line in that song that I don't think gets enough attention, that I think is just so incredible, is Sam Stone popped his last balloon, climbing walls while sitting in a chair. Yeah. Who else? I know you've been influenced by a lot of people. You got to play with Guy. I'm sure Emmylou was in there, Nanci. Who else comes to mind just in terms of sort of your influencers, your heroes, the people who inspired you to write?
Well, I'm drawn to songwriters over singers. So I'm in that minority of people who listen to the words carefully. So inevitably the answers come because that's how I listen. My people that have been important to me are the people who treat songs that way. You know, Cohen, Springsteen, Dylan, Lucinda, Guy Towns, Nanci, John. And there's a lot more in there. But inevitably for me, I'm looking, when I listen to a song, I'm looking for something that is true, that makes me go, damn. And when that happens, it is the best thing that for me, it's just, oh my God, I found it. It's like digging for treasure, because most songs go by and people are really good singers, or they're really good looking, or the production is really stellar, so it's sonically great. But those things aren't really, they don't, it's not that they don't do it for me. It's that they don't sustain me. I'm sustained by the writers, and being a writer, that's probably why I love the people who, James McMurtry, by the way, who can really write.
Yeah. And it's not always the, when you say that line that makes you go, damn, it's not always the line that is, you know, that noticeable. I mean, in some of your songs, just the simple line, I drink. I mean, it just, I don't know if that's the moment in the book where you make the comparison to the sauce,
the demi-glace, the reduction.
I don't know if that's the moment, but there's an example of it. Boiling it all down to just that moment with the pause before it, and I drink, was wow. And then I don't know what all this means. I don't think it means what it seems. That might be a line that a lot of people are not even going to kind of notice. But if you're paying, as you do, if you're paying attention to those lines and looking for that real moment, that's just, you really nailed that one. Well, you mentioned Bob, and I always ask my guests about Dylan. I'm sort of obsessed with him. I think he's endlessly fascinating. And I wonder how you think about Dylan. When I talked to Jamie, she said, well, I asked her the question, she said, well, if Mary was here, she would say greatest songwriter of all time. How do you think about Dylan?
Greatest songwriter of all time. Although, geez, you know, Springsteen's, they're neck and neck.
Okay.
Dylan is one in a trillion. He's Shakespeare.
Yeah.
He's irreplaceable, and endless, like you say, endlessly fascinating.
Do you forgive him in effect for? I know one of the things I've heard you say a number of times is that one of the things that because you value lines in a song that are so true and honest and real, when you hear a song that just to you it sounds good but it doesn't mean anything, look, there's a lot of that in Dylan. Let's be honest, there is a lot of that in Dylan. I mean, there's plenty of songs that are just packed with meaning. There's also plenty of things that it's like, Bob, come on, what does that mean? It sounds really cool. Do you kind of forgive him for that, or how do
I
you think
do.
about it? Yeah.
I do, because then the next one is going to be "It Ain't Dark Yet" or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that could be the whole record, that one song.
Yeah.
And even in some of the lesser Dylan songs, there are lines that still rise above what 99% of any of us are capable of.
Right.
And I don't know his process. I don't know him. I don't know what's in the vault, what he does not release. But I'm always interested in what he's doing, because when he nails it so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. No one like him. What was it like for you when he played did he play, which song was it he played?
Played I Drink. Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It's crazy. It's crazy for him to say my name, to know my story, to tell people about me on his radio show. His first radio show, which got a lot of press and made big expose in the New York Times, and that attached my name to his name in a way that was glorious for me, and his fans were introduced to me in a big way because it was the first installment or second installment of Theme Time Radio.
Right.
And he told the audience my story. I don't know to this day how that happened. I no idea. And he really didn't play many modern songwriters. He played songs from that were deep cuts from long ago.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, that had to be incredible. But one of the things I want to back up and ask you is, with that moment, with the Nanci Griffith moment, with the guitar, with the Grammy nomination, Mary, how do you stay right-sized?
You want to know the truth? I don't look back, to borrow from Dylan.
Okay.
I don't look back. I spent my whole morning trying to figure out how to help my new speaker agent to succeed, because she's not landing me any work. I'm like, okay, we got to figure out how to help you succeed. So what do you need? What do you need? You need a sizzle reel? We can get somebody to put together 2 good minutes of me speaking. I did TED Talks. The clip from Rolling Stone on the book. I mean, I'm always looking forward. And I really don't look back, and I definitely don't take the successes that I have and wear them like a crown, because it's still hard. I'm not. Yeah, it's not like I'm Brandy Carlisle or something. I still have to work to sell tickets. I still have to work to connect. And I don't float above anybody. I'm in the trenches with everybody, working hard. And the truth is also that I think of myself as good as my last song.
Yeah. That's great. Mary, I promised to keep this less than an hour, and we're coming up pretty soon here. So let's kind of start winding down. I just have a couple more questions, and we could talk for hours, I think. But let me just ask you a couple of maybe quick kind of rapid fire questions.
You got it.
What pisses you off?
Boy, is that a long list. Ooh.
What comes to mind first?
Okay, just quickly, when the light turns green and somebody immediately lays on the horn.
Okay.
I want to get out of the car, walk, and go punch them in the face. I'm like, just chill, man.
It's amazing, isn't it? The way people
Oh,
buy
that makes
songs?
me so mad. That just go through the roof. I'm not on my phone. I'm not paying attention. I'm not stalling at a green light. Just turn. And that's happening in Nashville now with all these new people. It didn't happen forever when I lived here. It was, you didn't dare blow your horn because that's probably your neighbor or your boss or your girlfriend. I mean, it was small town, and now it's just aggressive, and that makes me mad. Tailgating me, all the road stuff, boy.
Yeah.
Riding real close to my bumper when I'm doing the
Yeah.
best I can behind a truck or something, and
Yeah.
that stuff gets me. I get going real hot, and it's dangerous because everybody's carrying. I gotta not do that.
Right. That's right. That's right. Now,
Uh,
speaking of things that piss us off, and I'm with you there, and several of my other guests have referred to traffic as well as the thing that pisses them off. What do you have a method? Do you have practice for dealing with the inevitable slings and arrows of life, the shit that we all have to deal with? Do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you have some kind of method that you fall back on when the shit's raining down on you?
I have an incredible network of other people in recovery that I have on speed dial. And so that kind of support is authentic.
Yeah.
Because the group that I'm in, we're all trying to not die of drug and alcohol addiction. And so I have a network of people that I can lean on. I'm not a big meditator. I've wanted to be, but then inevitably I just don't stay with it. Do I pray? I think of my songs as a form of prayer in a way.
Yeah.
But what I do is ask for help. And I ask for help from people who are working a 12-step program or working in with their therapist and doing the kind of things that they can be leaned on and show up for someone and truly offer what most of us need is a real good listening to.
Yeah. Well, just a couple more questions here. Again, I wish I'd love to spend more time, but I want to respect your time. What do you think happens when we die?
That's a really good question. I've thought about it a lot. I think we go back to the source. We go back to from where we came. And it's not as an individual. I think the individuation is part of the pain here. We go back to a collective from where we came, and we go home to each other in a way that's collective and not individual. The separation here is nice, but it starts to get old. You just want to go home. That feeling of just want to go home, that has led me to think that there's something about home that's collective. And I pray that I'm right, but we'll never know.
That's beautiful. And speaking of that, when you are dead and gone, what do you hope people say about you?
Oh God, I hope they say that I was not an asshole. That I held the door for old ladies. That that I was nice to sound men who were getting paid $75 to work 6 hours and be abused by the next rock star. I hope they would say that, I left people in better shape than I found them, that I got their name, I was kind, made sure they had something to drink, something to eat. Those things.
Yeah. Beautiful. You clearly are that person. And Mary, I'm just, I'm honored and grateful for you spending this time with us. I really appreciate it. And I'm so bummed. I know you and Jamie are playing an hour and a half away from me next week at the Mucky Duck. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I will see it online. And I hope to meet you in person one day.
Same, John. Same. We got to make that happen.
Yeah. Mary, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye-bye.